Hi, my name is Maria Kirksey, and my presentation is over Edward Thorndike and the law of effect that he kind of deemed. Um, his early life. So he was born Edward Lee Thorndike, and he was born in Williamsburg, Massachusetts, on August 31st, 1874. Um, He was born to Edward, Robert, and Abby Brewster. He had two brothers and one sister. Before becoming a preacher in the Methodist denomination, Thorndike's father practiced law in Maine. And I guess I should have put Edward's father and not, Mr. Thorndike. But he practiced law in Maine. And then I actually could not find an occupation for his mother, but I would assume with it being in the late 1800s that she was a homemaker. And then she was often described as possessing a will of steel. And then I think he had a brother named Lynn and a sister named Mildred. And then he had an older brother named Ashley. And so, given his siblings that I just talked about, Mildred and Ashley left their mark in English literature. So Edward wasn't the only one that left his mark. And then Lynn left her mark in medieval history. And then, of course, Edward left his mark in the science of education and in psychology. So it's pretty obvious that Thorndike came from a family of geniuses, with his siblings making their mark in history. And then his father was a pastor and a lawyer, and it was stated that his mother, not only did she have a will of steel, but she was known for her religious values and things. So it's obvious that he came from a good home that was, had a good foundation for him. His personal and professional life. So Thorndike attended Wesleyan University and Harvard, and ended up graduating with his doctorate from Columbia University in 1898. So he did his at Wesleyan University. He graduated with his undergraduate in 1981, and then he went on to do his graduate studies at Harvard, and then he got his doctorate at Columbia. At Wesleyan University, Edward had an undergraduate record that was superior to most. So then again, his intelligence really shows through there. He excelled in all his years at universities that he attended in whatever subject he chose. He was in literature at one time before he was in psychology. And then Edward married Elizabeth Moulton in 1900, and they had 4 children together through the years. So I thought that was pretty cool because he's a child, like his parents had 4 children, and so did he. While Edward was still in graduate school at Columbia, he began working with Robert S. Woodworth. And then at Columbia, Edward was professor of educational psychology from 1904 to 1940. And then he spent his time there working on human learning, education, and intelligence testing. And then his first job was the College for Women of Western Reserve University in Cleveland in 1998. And then 1 year later, he went to work at Columbia. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see. So some influences that Edward Thorndike had. The Principles of Psychology by Harvard professor William James sparked an interest in psychology for Edward. And then Thorndike received much guidance from psychologist James McKean Cattle during his research on animals. Late life and death. Edward died in Montrose, New York on August 9th, 1949, and he was 74 years old. Despite his earthly death, his legacy and work has and will continue to live on for generations to come. His influence on modern psychology education. Thorndike's research of mental discipline was completely different than what everyone was used to. He believed that instead of training minds to simply work things out, that this method was only beneficial if the subject had a common trait. Thorndike also helped shape our standardized tests that we use today. Finally, Thorndike introduced the law of effect model that helps with promoting a positive environment for students within the classroom. He believed that if a student's environment was enjoyable for them, then they were more apt to learn and retain information. And I think this is so important. I have my own classroom at the high school that I work at right now, and I've had a lot of students tell me that when the teacher just really makes the environment seem like they can't breathe a certain way, that they are so strict and they don't enjoy going to class, regardless if that teacher is strict or not. They don't enjoy going to a class with a teacher that they can't approach, where they feel like they can't approach them. And students are not going to retain information in a classroom where they don't feel comfortable, and they feel like they can't enjoy themselves. I do understand that there's a point of enjoying yourself too much and it becomes disruptive and things like that. But I do think that it's very important to have an environment for students to be able to work in and feel like they can be themselves in the sense that they enjoy it. So I really like Thorndike's thought process on that, because I totally agree with that students are more apt to learn and retain information in a classroom where they feel comfortable and they can enjoy it, and they feel like they can approach the teacher with whatever questions they may have and things like that. But yes, that is my presentation on Edward Thorndike. I did enjoy learning about him. I had actually never heard of him before, so it was kind of cool to see that. And then I do have my sources slide connected to this as well. But yeah, so that's it. Thanks.